Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Thursday night StreamYard Spotlight Show. Oh, I'm co-host Dana Bentz.
And I'm co-host Kelsey Bentz. Thanks so much for everyone who's already in the comments. I'm seeing Todd and Tim and Steven and Daniel.
Ooh.
Oh my goodness. And James
I love
J.
it.
Thank you so much for tuning in, you guys.
Tim, of course. Tim's here every week. Thanks for being here. We have a very fun episode today. So it's tiny backstory. I met Karen when I was on Karen's show, Sounds on the Couch. So we're gonna have a great conversation and hearing her tips on interviewing musicians, artists. So I'm super excited about that. We're excited to learn from her. I love the setup with the countdown timer. Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah,
I just put that together today. I'm not sure if I'm a big fan, but I like the new
I liked
purple.
it, Dana.
Oh, good. Cool. Well, let's jump right into it. So we've got our little banner there. Let us know where you're tuning in from. And at any time throughout the live stream, let us know if you want to ask our guest a question. If you want to add to our questions, we're happy to show your comments on the screen. Santa Cruz is here. Very cool. Well, without further ado, let's bring on our special guest, Karen. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
I know. We're so excited that you're here. I'm so excited to talk about your show. So for our audience members who have never watched Sounds on the Couch, can you talk about what this platform is that you've built?
Yeah, absolutely. So Sounds on the Couch is really a platform for musicians, particularly independent musicians. During COVID, it was really difficult it still is for so many musicians in terms of being able to get out and perform. It's their livelihood, it's their income. And Sounds on the Couch really just started as a platform for them to get out there, expose themselves, to perform their music, and it sort of developed from there. So now we have performances I'm in Australia, so obviously it's different timing to you, but it's Wednesday evenings and Saturday evenings. We also do interviews with artists and experts from the music industry. We have Song of the Week, so we're showcasing songs that artists have written themselves and are putting out into the world, and it's really just developing from there. So it's really just a chance for musicians to really show what they're doing and expand their audience to a broader range than maybe they would if they were just doing it themselves.
Sure, that makes sense. And where do you stream live to? Are you multi-streaming to multiple platforms, or do you have like a main channel that you go to?
Yeah, so now we stream to Facebook, we stream to Instagram in some ways, and we do YouTube as well. So yeah, it's been a real journey, because initially I was starting to try and find, when I started, it was a Zoom-based platform, and
Sure.
I was having a lot of trouble because it wasn't at that time. I know that all these platforms have done so much development, as StreamYard has as well. But when I started, I didn't really know how to use Zoom properly, and I didn't have the ability to really be able to showcase musicians' work, or it didn't have the sound facilities that I was looking for. So I was desperately trying to find a platform that would enable me to be able to share music and really be able to showcase it in the best quality that we could possibly have. So from there, it's sort of, StreamYard's been absolutely amazing for that.
That's so neat to hear. And I know a lot of people, like, StreamYard's not necessarily known for being like the musician platform, but I think as soon as the pandemic hit, people were like, how am I going to stay in touch with my audience? Like, how am I going to reach my fans when my next 60 concerts just got canceled? So have you found that it's actually easier to book these musicians on your show now that their like concerts and things like that have been shut down?
Yeah, well, I mean, in Australia, we're getting to a really interesting point now where things are starting to open up a lot. And I honestly thought that as we were opening up, it would be a lot more challenging to book. But I haven't found that so much. I think as things were shutting down, I was getting a lot of people quite desperate to get their music out there. And it was an amazing opportunity for them. But as things have been changing, we've changed our processes a little bit, but yeah, it's surprised me how many people have been opened up to the idea that they can reach a different audience by performing. I think there's so much more opportunity now that people are aware of what they can do. You know, we didn't have a lot of the knowledge of what we could do online. I know a lot of people were streaming, but now I think our minds have just been opened up as to, you know, who we can reach. I mean, you know, who would think that we would do a performance from Melbourne, Australia, and have somebody in the UK listening to it, or somebody in California, or, you know, Africa. Like, you know, you can have people listening all over the place that may not have heard your music previously. And I think so many artists are realizing the opportunity that they never had. And so, yeah, it's been a really interesting journey for me, because so much of this I didn't know. I sort of learned as I was going along the journey. So it's been fascinating.
It's so interesting to hear you talk about that, Karen, because I've been wondering a lot what's going to happen to the virtual space when we move into like starting to open up again, because here in the States, we're still very much like closed down. You know, things are not, there's no live performance really happening yet. Some things are starting, but, you know, everything's masked and it's just not functioning the way it used to. So I've been wondering over the past year, like, what's the virtual space going to look like once we do have the opportunity again to perform live? So it's really interesting to hear you talk about how it sounds like the virtual space is still really valued, even as you guys are moving back into in-person events as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there needs to be some changes. I mean, obviously for Saturday night shows, a lot of my Saturday night shows now are pre-recorded. I still stream a lot of other shows and interviews and things like that, because as particularly Australian artists are going back to perform, they've got gigs on Saturday night. So it can make it challenging, and we do have to change how we do it. But I think that there's just so much more opportunity to really, you know, expand what you're doing. I mean, if you're performing to a room with maybe a couple of hundred people, that's amazing, and that needs to keep going. But when you're going and you've got the opportunity to perform for thousands of people from their lounge room on their couch, you know, there's just so much opportunity in that for artists to really, you know, develop their careers so much further, and even to interact with other artists that are maybe on the other side of the world.
Right.
Absolutely.
So their audience can be on the other side of the world, and other artists they connect to can be on the other side of the world.
Exactly. And you learn so many different things. If you have you have connections in another country, they may have different experiences that they can bring to you, and you can take on those skills.
Right.
So yeah, it's a whole different world now. I think COVID's brought so much devastation in so many ways, but at the same time, there's been so much opportunity for people to really be able to expand what they're doing and really rethink what they're living every day.
Yeah, and Kelsey, I feel like you have even experienced this on your show. I know this is a little bit off topic, but your show of interviewing other artists in the theater world, I feel like you've noticed a similar thing. Like the people, like it's been devastating to artists specifically, as you've seen, Karen. But the people who have been able to make the shift online and who have been able to like see the opportunity of now I can reach, you know, millions. Now I can reach Australia from the United States. They've actually seen, like they've been thriving if they're taking this as an opportunity to now go online.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like you were saying, Karen, the opportunity to connect with people on the other side of the globe in this virtual space at the same time, like I think that's what's novel about the live streaming space, is that before, like, of course, we were able to watch a video that someone in Australia was also able to watch at our respective times, right? But like the live stream space has allowed us to come together at the same moment, which is so beautiful.
Yeah, it's magical just to be able to, I mean, even when, so I, as mentioned earlier, I did an interview with Dana, and just the excitement of being able to reach somebody on the other side of the world and go, well, what's happening in your location? You know, it's a real novelty as well. It's something that, you know, so many of us haven't done before now.
Yeah, totally.
And me being on that show, I thought was extra cool because I think it was, you know, Saturday for me. It was Saturday night for me, and it was Sunday afternoon for you, or something like that. It just makes StreamYard makes the world feel so much smaller because you're able to, you know, like be in a StreamYard with someone from the opposite end of the world. And then we're able to stream our interview to our audience who is like all over the place. Like, that's why we always love to ask where everyone's tuning in from at the start. And I don't know if you do the same on your show at the start, Karen, but we love to see how global the audience is.
Yeah, well, yeah, maybe that's something I should be taking on more, actually. Great idea. Yeah. But yeah, it is just amazing that, yeah, you can have people asking questions live from, you know, YouTube or from Facebook or wherever you're streaming, and just have them all coming to one place and be able to connect with people and share, even as you've got below, sharing the comments that people are making. Or it's just a whole different world.
Absolutely.
It is a whole different world. And
I'm interested in, Karen, your opinion on this question. We're hearing a lot about hybrid events. I'm wondering, like, is that something that's happening already in Australia as, you know, the live performance venues are opening back up, or are you hearing about hybrid events, or what are your thoughts on that?
Can I just get you to explain a little bit about hybrid events?
Sure. I think what Tim means by hybrid events is like both virtual and live somehow coinciding. So like what I think, I mean, I haven't even really seen any virtual events because or hybrid events because we don't have in-person events happening yet. But what I imagine is that there's some element of live performance happening with audience maybe, and then some element of virtual happening together. Have you seen any of that?
Yeah, well, it's definitely, as venues are starting to open here, that's definitely happening a lot more. It's not something that I've done yet, but it is something I'm looking to do more as we take, you know, I'd love to go and take some artists to a venue and be able to stream that. I think that's amazing. Obviously, it's something that has been happening in so many venues where there have been limitations, maybe not so much with the music, but, you know, you look at what a lot of churches are doing and what a lot of, you know, funerals and weddings and things like that, where they haven't been able to have the audiences. That's been happening here all the way through. But yeah, I think as more opens up and there's more opportunity to really get out there, I think so many more artists are really going to take that chance to really showcase what they're doing. You know, if they're out doing a gig, being able to share that with this audience that they've built over this COVID time, like, it's such an opportunity.
Absolutely. And being able to combine the intimacy of the in-person audience, right? Which I think so many of us have been craving for as performers, is like being able to feel the audience and hear the applause and hear the, you know, but also integrate that with the intimacy of the virtual space, which we've been talking about, allows you to connect with people who would in no way be able to attend a live performance, right? Like, there's that type of connection too that we don't want to lose. So that hybrid idea is so exciting to me.
Yeah, well, there's also so many artists that have said to me that, you know, even if it is fairly local, you know, there might be somebody who's playing that they've never heard of before, and they wouldn't go and see them in a live performance, but they're hearing about them through these channels. But yeah, I think being able to have that audience feel and be able to share that is something that's definitely going to be in the future. I think even some of the performances that we've had, they've had a couple of people in their lounge room clapping during the performance.
Yeah. Oh, that's fun.
You appreciate it so much more because it hasn't been there. And so I think so much of this live feel and being able to share that is definitely something that's going to be so appreciated by both the performers and also the audiences so much more in the future.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So we touched just briefly on this before, but I want to hear how you're using the interactions, like the comment section. How are you engaging with the audience, or how are the guests that you have on engaging with your audience?
Yeah, so we've been using the comments. Sometimes we've shared them. We've sort of experimented a lot in different ways of sharing, whether you share a whole bunch of them or whether you just share the sort of highlights. And sometimes we've just verbalized it. It really depends on. It's sort of been more in interviews rather than the performances that we've used those comments.
So the audience can ask questions too?
Yeah, or ask questions of the interviewee. It's been amazing to be able to put it up on the screen, but it depends on who we're interviewing as well. Sometimes it is easier just to use the comments and bring them up verbally. But it's nice to really be able to have those options.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. And I like that they come in. You mentioned this earlier, that they come in from all the platforms. Like, it's not just, we're talking to our Facebook people, our Facebook audience, but we get to be like talking to the YouTube and the LinkedIn and the, we're streaming to Periscope, we get to connect with everyone across multiple platforms.
Yeah. And I think that connection is just so important. You get different types of people that are on these different platforms. You get, we don't stream to LinkedIn at the moment, but if you've got that professional audience and then you've got your more casual sort of Facebook audience, it's nice to be able to bring those together and really sort of share that experience and bring different perspectives from people that may have different perspectives on things.
Yeah. It makes sense. You're using the comments in the interview portion and not so much the when someone's performing, because that makes sense. If you're singing a song, there's not too many things you can comment on.
Yeah, well, we have used it if there's so much support and things for musicians as well, and so in the past we have used it a lot to share, we love what this person's doing, or, a very encouraging kind of comment. But it's nice just to be able to have that option available and use it where you see it appropriate.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, featuring them in the right place.
Exactly.
So I know we're almost out of time, but the last question I really want to ask, or I really want to hear from you, is you've been on this live streaming journey, is what we sometimes like to call it. But what have you learned from your live streaming, or what have you in which ways have you grown in your live streaming?
Just understanding what's important. I think I came from a very fresh place in regards to live streaming and was very naive when I started, and just knowing the technology that you need to put into it, knowing how to understand and utilize the systems, but also just technically getting the communication across to the person that you're sharing with, knowing that they're aware of what they need to do, knowing that they have all the information about how the system works, that they have the information of what works well and what doesn't in terms of technology, like maybe their microphone, or maybe making sure the background's set up well. Don't assume that the person is going to think in the same way that you are. Right. What technology they're using to video the performance. Are they planning on using a mobile phone, which caused a few issues initially, or do they have a full setup? What are they using? I think that they've been the key things that I've learned along the journey.
Interesting.
And it
And
really is a learning curve, I think, too.
Mm.
Like just even Dana and I, as we've been live streaming more and more, though we work for we work for StreamYard, it's still a learning curve in terms of what we're developing with our own live content. And I think it's that way for everyone.
Yeah. And I think it's constantly changing as well. So there's always so much more that you can pick up and so much more that you can tweak things so that it just works that little bit better as you're moving forward.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Well, we've come to the end of our show. Thank you so much for giving us your tips on live streaming and giving us the inside scoop of your show. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been amazing.
Yeah, it's been super fun. Yeah. Thanks for making time for us. We'll see you soon, Karen.
See you.
I love that last part that she mentioned of how she's, upgraded the things that matter, like the camera, the lighting, like her mic sounds just awesome, sounds phenomenal. Yeah. And I've looked back to some of my live stream shows from the past, and it's like, I did not start with this background and this monitor and these lights, and it's so true that it's like, even now when I think my camera looks okay, it's still a work in progress. Like I'm still tweaking things, like Karen said, along the way. And I'm
still inspired by other live streamers in the community too, who I see, making really awesome content. And I'm like, oh, like I want to do something like that, So it's a continual, like we were talking about, learning process.
Yeah, totally. Well, thanks everyone for being here. Our comment section was poppin' as usual. And we'll be back next Thursday with another episode of the StreamYard Spotlight. Thanks everyone for tuning in.
Bye.